Chapter 260. That little brow relaxes. There's no smile on that handsome little face, no reliance, but there's an indescribable peace of mind. It's like a lonely boat drifting on the sea, finally finding its sheltered harbor. The incense in the room wafts in spirals. As Ming-ju holds the child, he unexpectedly feels sleepy as well. He's done something to the incense. To make Mu Yang and Xiao Bao sleep a little deeper, not noticing his approach. But these incense shouldn't have any effect on him. Strangely, it doesn't have any effect on Xiao Bao either. But at this moment, he's smelling the fresh fragrance, holding the little child, and looking at the peaceful sleeping face of his beloved woman. All the nerves in his body can't help but relax, and he can't help but want to rest. Ming-ju lies down, placing Xiao Bao in the middle. Then he stretches out his long arms, pulling the mother and son into his protective range, and closes his eyes. Without Xiao Bao's obstruction, Ming-ju really can't guarantee that he wouldn't want to devour the only woman he deeply loves, but also hates to the point of gnashing his teeth in the middle of his sleep. The next day, the sun shines in through the window and falls on the bed. Mu Yang stretches and sits up. The corners of her lips are slightly hooked, and her smile is indescribably languid and comfortable. She slept very well yesterday, to the point that her whole mood is indescribably happy. The only thing that makes her depressed is, last night, she seemed to have dreamed of that man who left without saying goodbye. Ming-ju. TSK, how could she dream of this man? And in her dream, she vaguely saw that man's face, seemingly eager to make a move, wanting to take liberties. Could it be that the man's face is really too tragically handsome, and she has been thinking about it for a long time, so she thinks about it day and dreams about it at night? Mu Yang shakes her head, shaking this terrible thought out of her mind. Then, she finds another strange problem. Xiao Bao isn't in her arms. Instead, he's sleeping about an arm's length away from her. And is also sleeping very sweetly, without any uneasiness, panic, or sadness on his little face. Mu Yang's face shows a trace of disbelief. She doesn't know if it's because she was almost persecuted when she was pregnant. Xiao Bao has been very independent and powerful since childhood, and has amazing talent, but he lacks a sense of security. Although he always has a taut little face, he really likes to stick to her. Especially at night, if he couldn't be in her arms, he wouldn't be able to sleep well. When Xiao Bao had just turned 4, Mu Yang had thought that boys should be independent and wanted him to sleep by himself. When he brought it up, Xiao Bao agreed. But when she wakes up in the middle of the night, Mu Yang finds that the little figure lying in the corner is silently crying. He didn't make a sound, but he curled his small body into a ball. At that time, Mu Yang was so distressed that she could hardly breathe. From then on, he never asked Xiao Bao to sleep by himself again. Every night when she went to sleep and woke up, she would hold her baby tightly in her arms and use body language to tell him, don't be sad, mother is by your side. As if feeling Mu Yang's gaze, Xiao Bao rubs his eyes and opens them. A pair of large blue eyes reflected the sunlight, projecting an innate coldness and nobility. At that moment, Mu Yang stares blankly. This pair of eyes seemed to overlap with the blue eyes of the man she saw in her dream. Chapter 261. As soon as he turns his head and sees Mu Yang, he immediately pounces into her arms. Mu Yang comes back to his senses, and he quickly throws that thought to the back of his mind. Baby, did you sleep well last night? Xiao Bao seems to be startled, then he tilts his little head. Because he slept for a night, his originally neatly combed hair has become a bit messy. There are also a few ahoj that stand up. With such a tilt of his little head, he immediately appears exceptionally soft and cute. It's completely different from his usual cold, little adult appearance. The more Mu Yang looks at his baby, the more he loves him. She wants to hold him in her arms and give him a good kiss. But she hears Xiao Bao say in a crisp, childish voice, Xiao Bao had a dream. Achem? What did you dream about? Xiao Bao tightens his mouth, his big eyes flashing as he doesn't speak. The tips of his ears seem to be a little red. In the dream, he seems to have seen his father, and is even being held in his arms. His father's appearance is very vague, and has never seen him before. However, Xiao Bao knows that it's his father, Is the feeling of having a father like in the dream? Hongfu Medical Center is the largest medical center in all of Qianyuan City. This is because the owner of the medical center is the senior doctor of Xian Medical Pavilion, Deng Hongfeng. He's also the disciple of Yanwu Continent's famous #1 godly doctor, Qian Qing. There are more than 10 doctors keeping watch in Hongfu Medical Center. Each doctor is at least at the level of a junior doctor of Xian Medical Pavilion. Therefore, this place has the most patients coming in and out every day. Many of them even specially rush over from other cities due to its fame. But no matter how many doctors there are in Hongfu Medical Center, no matter how powerful they are, there will always be illnesses that can't be treated. Therefore, some patients come out beaming with joy, while others have a frown. On this day, the Hongfu Medical Center opens its doors as usual. Patients come in and out, some are crying, some are laughing, some are grateful, and some are in despair. Suddenly, not far from the Hongfu Medical Center, an abrupt roar is heard. Junji Medical Center, Qianyuan City's only senior doctor keeping watch, specializing in treating patients that the Hongfu Medical Center can't treat. Don't miss this opportunity. As long as you're judged by the Hongfu Medical Center's doctors to be incurable, don't despair, don't be dispirited, please come to Junji Medical Center. The only senior doctor in Qianyuan City who passed the examination with genuine ability will definitely be able to solve your problems and cure your illness. Everyone's gazes were focused on these shouts. Many of the people going in and out of the Hongfu Medical Center have already begun to ask around, just what is the origin of this Junji Medical Center? Also, what they said about the only senior doctor in Qianyuan City, was it true? But the people from the Hongfu Medical Hall were about to explode. Several burly men immediately rush out, holding up a sign at the door that says Junji Medical Center, Peerless Godly Doctor, specializes in treating patients that Hongfu Medical Center can't cure. They viciously say, "Where did these dogs come from? Actually daring to come to our Hongfu Medical Center and behave atrociously. I think you're all tired of living." As he spoke, a few burly men's profound energy surged as they fiercely pounced towards them. The next moment, a few bangs were heard. Before the onlookers could come back to their senses, they heard the rough roar again. Don't miss it when you're passing by. In any case, the Hongfu Medical Center can't cure it, so it's better to go to the Junji Medical Center and take a look. If you can't cure it, you don't have to pay. The crowd was dumbfounded. Chapter 262. With just a face-to-face effort, they've already been knocked unconscious. They don't even have the slightest strength to fight back. And those fiendish-looking men holding up the placards, it's as if they can't see them at all. They're still holding up the placards, swaying back and forth and shouting. "You, who the hell are you people?" A doctor from the Hongfu Medical Center finally can't help but come out, shouting angrily, "Do you know where this place is? You actually dare to behave atrociously here." Hearing that, one of the men holding the placards boldly steps forward, sweeping a disdainful look at the doctor before saying, "What does it have to do with you? I'm talking to these sick guests. What does it have to do with you, you old fart?" This person is called Guan Hu. He's a member of the Ink Camp. It should be known that the people of the Ink Camp have all crawled out from mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Cunning, ruthless, and fearless of heaven and earth. An insignificant medical center, according to the Ink Camp's wishes, directly trample it flat. Wouldn't it be better to just chop off each head like a watermelon and flatten it? Why would it need to be so troublesome? But there's no other way. Who told this to be the devil woman, cough cough, the Mrs. Idea? They're the little master's servants, and the little master is obedient to his mother. Therefore, the people of the Ink Camp are well aware of the principle of how to preserve their lives and become stronger. That's right, they can ignore the words of the emperor. But the Mrs. words must be carried out methodically, otherwise they'll definitely die miserably. Not only will they die miserably, but they'll also never have the opportunity to advance in the future. Guan Hu revolves the internal force within his body, feeling the progress visible to the naked eye every day. His heart is filled with hope and desire. That doctor is an intermediate doctor from the Xian Medical Pavilion. Apart from Deng Hongfeng, he's the most respected person in the entire Hongfu Medical Center. How could he have been this angry? He immediately trembles from head to toe. You bully people too much. You and your master, are you tired of living? You dare to come to our Hongfu Medical Center to steal patient. TCH. Guan Hu sneers, tapping the placard with his hand. Old fart, can't you read? I'm looking for patients that your Hongfu Medical Center can't cure. Anyway, your Hongfu Medical Center can't cure people, so we'll call them to the Junji Medical Center. Our miss saving a life is better than building a 7-floor pagoda. You're saying that we're snatching patients, but our young mistress is disdainful of snatching your patients. Old fart, are you getting old and your brain turning into paste? The doctor couldn't take it anymore. He was so angry that his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Guan Hu doesn't care about him. He raises the sign and continues to yell at the top of his lungs with his ink camp companions. At first, no one paid any attention to him. After all, they've never heard of the Junji Medical Center. Moreover, if they offend the Hongfu Medical Center, they won't be able to mix around in Tianyuan City. But there were always patients who had been sentenced to death by Hongfu Medical Center. Looking at the words on the sign, listening to Guan Hu and the others shouting, a glimmer of hope ignited in his originally dead heart. Are you telling the truth? A skinny, middle-aged woman staggered forward, her eyes filled with hope. Really? Can all diseases be cured? Guan Hu cracked open his mouth, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. His smile was extremely bright. Chapter 263. The middle-aged woman hesitates for a moment, but she finally clenches her teeth and says, all right, I'll go with you to that Junji Medical Center. In any case, she has a terminal illness that can't be cured for a long time. How bad can it be? It's just giving medicine to a dead horse. When Guan Hu hears this, he immediately smiles even more brilliantly. All right, we've received today's guest. Brothers, let's go home. As soon as he says that, a group of people immediately crowd around that middle-aged woman, and they leave in a grandiose manner. The patients who were originally ready to make a move and ask questions are struck dumb. Someone couldn't help but say, I also want to try. The Hongfu Medical Center's doctor said that I'm already hopeless, but I don't want to give up hope. Guan Hu turns his head back, his ferocious face reveals a roguish smile. I'm sorry, our family's miss only receives one patient a day. Seeing that this group of troublemakers have left, the Hongfu Medical Center quickly returns to its tranquility. Even the doctor who fainted from anger has woken up, and he sits down to take his pulse again. As for that whatever Junji Medical Center, they simply don't put it in their eyes. They just treat it as a farce. What kind of joke is this? Their Hongfu Medical Center is the largest and most powerful medical center in Tianyuan City. The disease that the doctors here have determined to be incurable is certainly a terminal illness. In the end, how shameless are the doctors of the Junji Medical Center to say such big words like treating a patient they can't cure. However, the next day, the Hongfu Medical Center has just opened its doors. The patients who were waiting outside swarmed into the room. Suddenly, someone shouts as he runs over to this side, it's cured, it's really been cured. Too amazing. That doctor from the Junji Medical Center is really godly. As these words come out, each and every one of the patients waiting outside the Hongfu Medical Center are stunned. Are you kidding me? She's really cured? Someone can't help but question. I heard with my own ears that the doctor from the Hongfu Medical Center said that the woman has an intestinal blockage, and it's already reached the point where the medicine is ineffective. It's simply impossible to cure it. Right, I saw that woman's complexion, it's also ashen, it's very obvious that she's on the verge of dying. The person who came is somewhat unhappy from being questioned, I saw it with my own eyes. If you don't believe it, then go and see for yourself. Just as he's saying that, he sees Guan Hu and the others holding up signs, swaggering over to the Junji Medical Center. These people didn't even change their lines. Junji Medical Center specializes in treating patients that the Hongfu Medical Center can't treat. Don't miss out on passing by. As long as you've been determined by the Hongfu Medical Center's doctors to be incurable, please come to the Junji Medical Center. This time, everyone's gaze was not on them. Instead, they were focused on the woman behind them. The woman's face was still pale, and her body was still thin. However, His pair of turbid eyes were sparkling, filled with hope for the future. Her hand, which had been covering her stomach all this time, had already been put down. His gait was much more relaxed than before, and it was no longer as if he would collapse at any time. "Big sister, your intestinal blockage has really been cured." Someone couldn't help but step forward and ask. The middle-aged woman smiled, her wrinkled eyes curved, and her voice carried a trace of absent-mindedness. Chapter 264. Is this true? There are still some people who don't dare to believe it. That's intestinal obstruction. Can it really be cured? How did that doctor of the Junji Medical Center treat it? The middle-aged woman stares blankly, as if recalling yesterday's scene. After a long while, she slowly says, "That fairy doctor said that intestinal obstruction is only caused by improper diet, dampness, and heat blocking the appendix. The way to treat it is very simple. As long as the abdomen is cut open and that section of the blocked appendix is removed, it can be cured without medication." What? Cut open the abdomen? Are you kidding me? Wouldn't cutting open the abdomen mean certain death? The surrounding patients all show an aghast expression. The middle-aged woman shakes her head. "I originally thought so too. Cutting open the abdomen, even if the intestinal obstruction can be cured, wouldn't I still be in so much pain? But that fairy doctor seems to have some sort of magical power." She held the zither and played a very nice tune. "Then I fell asleep. When I woke up, the pain in my abdomen had disappeared, only leaving behind a small scar on my abdomen." As the middle-aged woman speaks, she lifts her clothes to let everyone see the wound on her abdomen. Sure enough, it really is a very small scar, and there's still a knot of thread on it. The fairy doctor said that these threads can be removed in a few days, and there won't even be a scar later. The middle-aged woman has a look of amazement and gratitude on her face. Although I don't know how the fairy doctor did it, I believe that she has superb medical skills. I think I can really continue to live." These words, as well as the middle-aged woman's current weak but vigorous appearance. Everyone present is stunned. There are even those who have studied medicine who can't help but take the woman's pulse. Soon after, they are surprised to find that the intestinal obstruction is really gone. The middle-aged woman is now very healthy, very healthy. Cutting open the abdomen can cure a person? Could there really be such a miraculous medical skill in this world? Haven't you heard? A few days ago, there was news from Xian Medical Pavilion that the only senior doctor in our Tianyuan city has been born. Moreover, it's a woman who's not even 20 years old. It's definitely the fairy doctor that this big sister is talking about. Could it be that my disease of loss of glory can also be cured? I've already spent tens of thousands of gold coins at the Hongfu Medical Center, but there's no sign of recovery. I also want to go to the Junji Medical Center to have a look. Boom. In an instant, the crowd was in an uproar. A patient with an incurable disease was like a person drowning in water. As long as he grasped onto a life-saving straw, he would crazily climb up. Therefore, even if they knew that the Hongfu Medical Center could not cure their illnesses, they would still rather spend large amounts of gold coins to enter and exit the clinic every day, just to hold on to that last bit of hope. Now that the Junji Medical Center has really given them hope, how could they not go crazy? Even Guan Hu, these fiends who lick blood from the edge of their blades, are stunned by the surging crowd before them. Wait a minute. Our young miss only sees one patient a day. But how could the patients care about him? Seeing that Guan Hu didn't take the patient away, they might as well just ask the middle-aged woman for the address of the Junji Medical Center, and rush over like a swarm of bees. After Hongfu Medical Center finished seeing the first batch of patients, they called the people waiting outside to go in. However, he was surprised to find that it was empty outside. There was not even a shadow of a person. Chapter 265. The manservant keeping order outside has a sullen face as he says, the patients have all run to the Junji Medical Center." What? The doctor who came out to inquire is stunned. How is this possible? At this time, Guan Hu, who is still in the same place, slowly walks forward. There's a malicious smile hanging on the corner of his mouth. Oh, there's no customer. It seems that the Hongfu Medical Center is very idle today. Oh, I reckon that it will be very idle in the future. Did you eat a bear's heart and a leopard's gall? Don't you know that offending our Hongfu Medical Center? Don't think about mixing around in Chenyuan City in the future. That doctor's whole body is trembling in anger. Guan Hu slaps away the doctor's finger pointing in front of him, sneering, whether you can mix around or not, it depends on this uncle's ability. What qualifications do you, this old thing, have to point fingers at us? If you dare to point at Laozi again, believe it or not, Laozi will break your bones. You what you? Guan Hu grabs that doctor by the collar, lifting him up like a chicken. He says with a sneer, go back and tell your master, if you dare to play dirty with our miss, don't let doctors and guests come to our Junji Medical Center. Then we'll make his Hongfu Medical Center not have a single patient in the future. Saying that, he swings his hand, and that doctor is pushed to the ground. Guan Hu waves his hand, brothers, mission accomplished, we're packing up. Looking at the few people leaving in a grandiose manner, then looking at the empty street outside the Hongfu Medical Center. An unprecedented panic rushes into the hearts of everyone in the Hongfu Medical Center. In just a short span of 10 days, the name Junji Medical Center has swept through every corner of Chenyuan City like a violent storm. There's even a tendency for it to spread out. The doctor of the Junji Medical Center is called Jun Muyin, a zither player and a senior doctor. She has superb zither skills. She also has medical skills that can bring the dead back to life, and grow flesh and bones. Legend has it that as long as Jun Muyin wants to save someone, even if the King of Hell has already set a death date, she can use a pair of slender hands to snatch this person's life back. Too many people who have been declared terminally ill by other medical centers come here and come out unscathed. Just like that, 1 spread to 10, 10 to 100. Jun Muyin's medical skills have already reached a legendary realm in Chenyuan City. In the beginning, the patients all called Muyin Fairy Doctor. This was because this young female doctor, who was not more than 20 years old, had a peerless beauty that could stun the world. Dressed in white, with her long hair fluttering in the wind, she looked like a goddess who had descended from the heavens to the mortal world. Slowly, some people felt that the title Fairy Doctor was not dignified enough. Therefore, everyone started to call her the Music Doctor. That's because Jun Muyin's treatment always starts with a melodious zither song, and slowly ends with the gentle and lingering music. During this process, the patient would not even feel too much pain. Instead, he would feel an indescribable joy in his body and mind. It was as if even his soul had been cleansed. There are also some people who secretly give Muyin the title of Enchantress of Medicine. Especially those patients that were personally rescued by Jun Muyin. No one knew better than them that when the white-clothed young lady smiled, she was languid and bewitching, elegant and refined, but with a flip of her wrist, she had pulled their lives back from the quagmire of hell. Even if Muyin never receives more than 10 patients every day. Chapter 266. In stark contrast to the explosiveness of the Junji Medical Center, there were fewer and fewer people in the Hongfu Medical Center. The huge medical hall used to be packed with people, but now there were only a few people. No matter how low the Hongfu Medical Center lowered the price of diagnosis and treatment. However, the number of people coming was still decreasing day by day. There was only one reason. That's because there's a large notice board hanging at the entrance of Junji Drugstore. He wrote, "This medical center only receives 2 kinds of patients. First, those that the Hongfu Medical Center can't cure. Second, from now on, those that will no longer patronize the Hongfu Medical Center. If there is any violation, the Junji Medical Center will never receive you." This announcement didn't seem like much at first glance, but upon careful thought, it seemed like it was trying to destroy the Hongfu Medical Center. If the patients did not go to Hongfu Medical Center, did they have any other choice? Of course, because Chenyuan City had the most medical centers. Even if it wasn't as big as the Hongfu Medical Center, there were still many outstanding doctors inside. Moreover, it was cheaper than the Hongfu Medical Center. But in the entire Chenyuan City, or even the entire Kaiyang country, is there any place that can replace the Junji Medical Center? No, not a single one, because Jun Muyin's medical skills are too outstanding. Only she had the magical medical skills to bring the dead back to life. She was the only one who could snatch a life from the clutches of the King of Hell. Even if those patients did not have incurable diseases now, who could guarantee that they would not have in the future? Even if he didn't get sick, who could guarantee that his family wouldn't get sick in the future? I can't go to the Hongfu Medical Center. What's wrong with that? I'll just go to another clinic. But with the famous Enchantress of Medicine, he would not form a feud. As a result, everyone was happy. The business of other medical centers in Tianyuan City could be said to be rising steadily. They were so happy that they could not close their mouths. The only unlucky one was the Hongfu Medical Center. Even a fly couldn't be found in that huge clinic. When Deng Hongfeng received the Hongfu Medical Center's shopkeeper's report, his face was so gloomy that it could practically drip water. The shrill voice could almost burst one's eardrums. Say it again. The innkeeper was trembling with fear, cold sweat dripping down his forehead. Dr. Deng, this really can't be blamed on us. That Junji Medical Center is really going too far, and that Jun Muyan, her medical skills are really too frightening. None of the doctors in our hospital, none of them can compare to her. In fact, the shopkeeper wanted to say something. Even if all of their Hongfu Medical Center's doctors were to be tied together, they still wouldn't be able to compare even a little bit to Jun Muyan. Who had ever heard of an intestinal blockage that could be cured in a day? Who had ever heard of a person whose heart had stopped beating could be saved? Who had ever heard of a person whose wounds were festering and on the verge of death being able to jump around as if nothing had happened? This Enchantress of Medicine, Jun Muyan, is she really not human? Could a person's medical skills really reach such a high level? Jun Muyan. It's that damned slut again. Deng Hongfeng clenched his fists tightly and gritted his teeth. The resentment in his eyes almost turned into flames. Call that trash Zhao Chunming over. Not long after, Zhao Chunming pushed open the door and entered with a flattering smile. Godfather, you were looking for me. Before he could finish his sentence, Deng Hongfeng lifts his foot and ruthlessly kicks him in the chest. Waste. Didn't you say that you would make that slut Jun Muyan's life worse than death? So many days have passed. What have you done, you useless thing? Chapter 267. But Zhao Chunming doesn't care about this, and he hurriedly scrambles over. Godfather, don't be angry, give me another chance, I will definitely do it well. As he says this, his face is twisted, and he says through gritted teeth, it's all that slut Fang Jingya's fault. I tried to persuade her in every possible way, but she refused to help frame her old lover. This slut, she really had an affair with that Shen Jinglin long ago. Deng Hongfeng looks down at him with a gloomy gaze. Don't talk nonsense with me. I only want the results. If you can't do this well, what's the use of keeping a good-for-nothing godson like you? Zhao Chunming shivers when he hears this, and he repeatedly kowtows. Godfather, rest assured, Chunming will definitely vent your anger for you. With great difficulty, he comes out of Deng Hongfeng's room. A trace of malevolence flashes through Zhao Chunming's eyes. Fang Jingya, you slut, you made me fall into such a difficult situation. Then don't blame me for being cruel and merciless, not taking into account the affection between husband and wife. Tianyuan City, the east entrance of the city. This is a place where slaves are sold, just like the ghost cities Wan Renku. But the slaves in the Wan Renku are usually of high quality. And the slaves here are basically just some ordinary people below the yellow stage, without even the slightest bit of internal force. Because the quality of the slaves is not high, the atmosphere here is usually oppressive and silent. People who want to buy slaves always come quietly, randomly picking two and taking them away. But today, this slave trading place is unprecedentedly lively. Because someone has set up a big ring in the middle of the square. On the ring, there is a woman with a delicate and pretty appearance, but her complexion is exceptionally haggard. It can be seen that she has clearly been meticulously dressed up. The clothes on her body are half covered, faintly revealing the woman's beautiful body. But on the exposed skin, there are traces of bruises everywhere. It's clear that she has been abused for a long time. Dong, dong, dong. The sound of gongs and drums that shake the sky resounds, attracting the people who were originally choosing people in the slave market. Even outside the slave market, when they hear this noise, they can't help but gather around the source of the excitement. Seeing that there are enough people, Zhao Chunming clears his throat and swaggers onto the ring. Today, I, Zhao Chunming, will publicly auction this slave girl. Those who want this female slave don't need to spend a single silver coin. All you need to do is defeat my guard. As soon as Zhao Chunming finished speaking, a burly guard beside him immediately stepped forward. His copper bell-like eyes widened as a powerful aura emanated from his body. Everyone couldn't help but exclaim, "What a powerful pressure, it's at least a profound rank." Zhao Chunming clapped his hands and the guard immediately took a step back. It's not easy to defeat a mystic rank master for a woman, yeah. Although this girl is quite pretty, she can't be considered a heavenly beauty. Not worth it, not worth it. Zhao Chunming heard the discussion below. Narrowing his eyes, he suddenly walks to Fang Jingya's side in large strides. His hand tugged at her clothes. There was a tearing sound. The clothes on Fang Jingya's body are torn apart inch by inch. Her slender, smooth, blood-stained thighs were exposed, and her body, which was only wearing a red doo-doo. His appearance was equivalent to exposing his body in front of everyone. Fang Jingya had originally given up on resisting in despair. But at this moment, the extreme humiliation and grief still made her tears fall uncontrollably. Her teeth firmly bite her lips until blood seeps out. Chapter 268. Zhao Chunming's eyes are sinister and malicious. Slut, if you had been obedient and helped me scheme against Shen Jinglin, you wouldn't have ended up like this. You brought this upon yourself. Saying that, he turns to look below the ring. He sees that everyone below is staring blankly at Fang Jingya's graceful body. There are a few with big ears and fat waists, and they've even started to drool. Fang Jingya's appearance might not be considered too beautiful. However, her snow-white skin and slender waist were enough to make one's blood boil. Zhao Chunming grabs Fang Jingya's hair, forcing her body to bend. The rise and fall of her chest is displayed in front of everyone through the thin fabric. How about it? Does everyone think that such a stunner isn't worth the value of a single ring? There are several sounds of saliva being swallowed under the ring. They're itching to rush up now, tear off that thin layer of fabric, and wantonly play with it. Zhao Chunming shows an even more sinister smile. There's still one more thing that you might not know. This isn't an ordinary slave girl, but the former Fang family's medical center's young miss, Fang Jingya. Think about it, how wonderful would it be to be able to press that lofty and aloof young miss under your body, and casually play with her like an animal? As soon as Zhao Chunming says this, someone under the ring immediately cries out in alarm, "Fang Jingya, that's right. This person really was the eldest miss of Tianyuan City's largest medical center back then. Alas, I didn't expect that a dignified young miss would actually fall to this point. Who made the Fang family have bad luck, offending Xian Medical Pavilion, and their century-old foundation was annexed. Now this young miss has actually been reduced to a female slave, TSK, really too pitiful." Most people in Tianyuan City don't know about Fang Jingya and Zhao Chunming's marriage. That's because Zhao Chunming married Fang Jingya only because he was jealous of Shen Jinglin, and wanted to take away everything that belonged to him. After getting his hands on this woman, Zhao Chunming got tired of her. Every day, he would either beat or scold her. Later, he even directly gave her as a gift to Deng Hongfeng to vent his anger for fun, in exchange for his own future. Therefore, how could Zhao Chunming let others discover that such a filthy woman is his wife? Perhaps, the entire Tianyuan City regards Fang Jingya as Zhao Chunming's wife. There was only Shen Jinglin. Some people were pitying Fang Jingya's miserable experience. However, even more people were eager to give it a try. Their eyes were filled with greed and bestial desire. He had originally thought that it was too risky to challenge a mystic rank master for a woman. But once they heard that she was once the young mistress of the Fang family, some people with perverted hobbies began to get excited. Soon, a fat man waved his hand at his subordinates. The Xian-grade subordinate immediately leaped onto the stage. Zhao Chunming turned around, patted the guard's shoulder, and said meaningfully, "Fight well. If you can successfully defend the ring within 4 hours, then this slave will be yours. The bodyguard glances at Fang Jingya at the side. He licks his lips, his eyes full of covetousness and tyranny. Thinking that he, an insignificant servant, can casually abuse Fang Jingya, the daughter of a rich family. He was so excited that his blood was boiling. The battle in the arena began. Chapter 269. Bastard. Bastard. You won't have a good death. Fang Jingya finally couldn't help but let out a hysterical roar. Shendage won't come, just give up on this idea. The light in Zhao Chuanming's eyes turned cold. He stood up and raised his hand to give her a ruthless slap. You slut, you're obviously married to me, but in your heart there's only Shendage. Shameless thing. Fang Jingya was hit dizzy by this slap. Blood seeped out of the corner of her mouth, and she was no longer able to speak. Zhao Chunming suddenly smiled sinisterly at the audience, raising his voice to say, "Everyone, how about I give everyone a little benefit? If this dear friend on the stage can hold on for a quarter of an hour, I'll tear apart all the cloth on this female slave's body. I don't know if everyone wants to see it." Everyone under the stage suddenly burst into lewd laughter, and in unison they jeered at the man fighting the stage to cheer. And those kind-hearted people already couldn't bear to turn their heads away, or quietly leave. A quarter of an hour quickly passed. Zhao Chuanming's sinister gaze searched the crowd, but he didn't see Shen Jinglin's figure. His brows tightly wrinkled, his eyes full of killing intent and impatience. Could it be that Shen Jinglin, that waste, is terrified? Doesn't dare to come? It shouldn't be possible, right? After all, Shen Jinglin is famous for his stupidity and loyalty. What brothers and friends are willing to sacrifice themselves? For friends, he can even throw away his life. It's because of this stupid behavior that he became a waste a year ago. As long as he knows Fang Jingya, this slut's current situation, Shen Jinglin will definitely come. With a bang, the man who challenged the stage was kicked down by Zhao Chuanming's bodyguard, Wang Dashi. A vicious color flashed in Zhao Chuanming's eyes. He smiled and walked in front of Fang Jingya. Although that brother just failed in his challenge, he still persisted for more than a quarter of an hour. Now it's time for me to give everyone a little sweetness. Saying that, Zhao Chuanming's hand grabbed Fang Jingya's apron. Fang Jingya closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. The thing she regretted the most in her life was that she mistakenly recognized Zhao Chunming, this animal, and married him. Now, Fang Jingya's death wasn't enough. She only hoped that Shendage could live well from now on. Her heart had already sprouted the will to die, and she was about to bite her tongue to commit suicide. However, he suddenly felt a pain in his lower jaw. Zhao Chunming sneered and said, "You want to die? It wasn't that easy. Even if you're going to die, you'll have to wait until I squeeze every last bit of value out of you." Fang Jingya's eyes are filled with despair. Her tears dried up and her heart turned to ashes, but she could only watch helplessly as this bastard tore off her remaining clothes. At this moment, there was a sudden bang. A strong gust of wind blew, and Zhao Chunming staggered a step back. Immediately afterwards, she sees a long robe fly high up in the sky, and it just happens to wrap around Fang Jingya's body. In an instant, her naked body was completely covered. Fang Jingya suddenly opens her eyes, and her lips, which are still bleeding, are trembling because of extreme excitement and disbelief. Zhao Chunming was shocked and furious at the same time. Then, as if he had realized something, he crawled up from the ground. A pair of malicious eyes stared unblinkingly at the crowd below. His eyes were filled with twisted resentment and excitement. Shen Jinglin, this waste had finally come. The crowd seemed to have sensed something and opened up a path. A man slowly walked towards the stage, his eyes fixed on Zhao Chunming. Chapter 270. But Zhao Chunming doesn't have the slightest trace of fear. Instead he laughs heartily. "Shen Jinglin, you really came. To your old lover, you're really affectionate and righteous. Even if you're already crippled and still dragging a lame leg, you still rushed over to save her. Ha ha ha." Hearing Zhao Chunming say this, the surrounding people immediately discover that this person is indeed walking with a limp, as if his legs and feet aren't very nimble. Soon after, someone else recognizes him at a glance. "Aya, Isn't this the Shen family's eldest young master who became a cripple a year ago? Right. It's indeed the Shen family's eldest young master, the one who originally had a peak profound stage cultivation base, but was crippled in one day, and even has a lame leg, Shen Jinglin. What did he come here for? Zhao Chunming hears the discussion of the people below, and the smile on his face becomes more and more malevolent. Everyone doesn't know. Although this Fang Jingya is my female slave, I originally wanted to treat her well and give her the status of a concubine. Who knew that this slut was unexpectedly fickle and shameless, openly hooking up with her old lover, Shen Jinglin. Such a shameless slut, what's the use of keeping her? Since she wants a man so much, this young master will properly fulfill her wish. I just didn't expect that today, this slut's old lover would actually run over. TSK, Shen eldest young master, you're really affectionate and righteous, As soon as these words are said, don't mention those wretched and disgusting men, even the people who were originally watching the excitement, and even sympathizing with Fang Jingya, all revealed a contemptuous expression. Women don't follow the ways of women. Men hooking up with married women, they're simply shameless. When Fang Jingya's clothes were torn off, she still wasn't very excited. At this time, she couldn't help but let out an almost shrieking roar. Zhao Chunming, you beast, don't talk nonsense and slander Shen big brother. At that time, you clearly told me that you were going to marry me as your wife, but after we entered the house, you beat and scolded me every day, and even gave me to an old eunuch, letting him humiliate and abuse me. Zhao Chunming, you're not a human, you're a devil, you're a beast. The thing that Fang Jingya regrets the most in this life is that she was deceived by you into marrying you. I only met Shen big brother a few days ago, where was their illicit, don't slander of me. Hearing Fang Jingya's almost weeping blood accusation, Shen Jinglin, who had just stepped onto the ring, was stunned. He looked at the woman tied to the wooden stake, and his eyes burned with rage. That day when they ran into each other on the street, he knew that Fang Jingya wasn't doing well. But he had never imagined that she would actually live such a life that was worse than that of a pig or a dog. There was also a slight commotion in the crowd below. Because Fang Jingya's appearance is really too miserable, and her accusation is also every word of blood and tears, making people involuntarily want to believe it. Zhao Chunming frowned and immediately ordered his guard, Wang Dashi, go, as long as you can beat Shen Jinglin half dead and let him fall into my hands, this woman is yours. Wang Dashi licks his lips and looks lasciviously at Fang Jingya. He immediately walks over in large strides and stands in front of Shen Jinglin. Young Master Shen has come up the stage. Is he here to fight in the arena so that he can win over this slave girl? Chapter 271. Ha ha ha. Zhao Chunming immediately laughed. Dashi, take it easy, don't beat him to death. In the end, he's the young master of the Shen family, a former peak profound stage martial artist. You have to give him some face. Shen Jinglin used to be a famous young talent in Tianyuan City. As for now, his chi-si is damaged, his meridians are atrophied, and his leg is disabled. He's nothing more than a waste. Being ridiculed like this, Shen Jinglin's face didn't change in the slightest. He just coldly looked at them. Wang Dashi's laughter abruptly stopped, and he suddenly let out a loud shout. His right hand clenched into a fist, and without warning, he ruthlessly smashed it towards Shen Jinglin. Powerful mysterious energy surged around his fist, bringing a gust of wind, as if to tear a hole in the air. Big brother Shen, quickly go, quickly go. Fang Jingya let out a mournful cry, her body desperately struggling, but she couldn't break free from the binding. The onlookers below the stage shook their heads, certain that Shen Jinglin would die without a doubt. However, the next moment, something that shocked everyone happened. Just as Wang Dashi's earth-shattering fist smashed in front of him. However, Shen Jinglin casually raised his hand and blocked that powerful fist. Subsequently, he lifted up his leg that should have been injured and crippled. A majestic aura of mysterious energy surged below his calf. He suddenly kicked out. With a bang, Wang Dashi's fat body flew straight out and hit the guardrail of the stage. The severe pain from his chest made his face twist, and he let out a painful groan. Just now, at the moment when Shen Jinglin kicked him, he seemed to have heard the sound of his sternum breaking. For a moment, the whole audience was silent. Everyone was dumbfounded. What's going on here? Wasn't Shen Jinglin a waste? Wasn't his qi damaged, and his cultivation completely lost? Then what was that mysterious energy that just surged on his leg? Zhao Chuanming's face was lifeless, his eyes firmly staring at the man he thought was already crippled. Shen Jinglin didn't look at Wang Dashi, who couldn't even stand up. Instead, he slowly walked towards Zhao Chunming. This time, his leg was actually normal, without the slightest hint of limp. And the powerful pressure from his whole body made Zhao Chunming tremble uncontrollably. How could you? Zhao Chunming said in disbelief, aren't you already crippled? Aren't you a cripple without any cultivation? Why? He did not finish his words of shock. Shen Jinglin suddenly grabbed his collar. Following that, a huge fist wrapped in thick profound energy smashed towards his face fiercely. With a loud bang, Zhao Chuanming's nose actually caved in. The sound of his nose breaking seemed to still ring in his ears. What followed was a piercing pain that made Zhao Chunming howl like a pig being slaughtered. Shen Jinglin did not let him go. Another kick landed on his chest, sending him flying. Then, she ruthlessly stomped on his chest. With another cracking sound, Zhao Chuanming's ribs were broken. Arth! The shrill scream caused everyone to shiver. Each of them looked at Shen Jinglin with eyes full of shock and awe. Suddenly, a man exclaimed, "This profound energy pressure, no, it's not the peak of the profound realm, it's the earth grade. Not only is Shen Jinglin not a cripple, instead he has become an earth stage expert." Chapter 272. No matter what kind of words, they're already unable to express their shock. A person with atrophied meridians, destroyed qi, and a crippled leg, has actually recovered after a year. And not only has he recovered, but even his cultivation has improved. In the end, how was this done? And who was it that healed him? Shen Jinglin ruthlessly steps on Zhao Chuanming's chest with one foot, as if he wants to trample out his internal organs. Zhao Chunming, an ungrateful, unscrupulous beast like you simply doesn't deserve to live in this world. Have you forgotten who was the one who took care of you day and night when you were injured in the jungle? It was Fang Jingya. Have you forgotten? You used to surround Jingya every day, acting obedient to curry favor, and you even swore to the heavens, saying that if you married her, you would definitely treat her well. Fang Jingya's eyes are brimming with tears, blankly looking at the godlike Shen Jinglin. Tears can't help but fall from the rims of her eyes. Zhao Chuanming's whole body is trembling in pain, his face overflowing with snot and tears. "Jinglin-ji, I was wrong, boo-hoo, spare me. I was blinded by lard. I beg you to spare my life." Just then, a group of people suddenly appear out of nowhere. With a loud bang, they jump onto the stage. These people all have weapons glittering with cold light in their hands. Each person exudes a formidable pressure and murderous aura, making the onlookers below feel a burst of fear. Shen Jinglin raises his head and looks at these people. "Who are you people?" Who we are doesn't need Shandashao to care." The person in the lead sneers, "We still request Shandashao to make a trip with us." As soon as Zhao Chunming sees those people, the pleading expression on his face immediately changes. With a distorted face, he shouts, "Shen Jinglin, my godfather's people are here, you still haven't let me go, cough, cough, cough. Even if your cultivation has recovered, so what? Could it be that one person can still deal with so many people?" "Godfather?" Shen Jinglin frowns. "That's right. Do you know who my godfather is?" Because of the pain, Zhao Chunming continuously coughs a few times, but his face is filled with crazy resentment. "My godfather is the great elder of Xian Medical Pavilion, Deng Hongfeng, and is also the apprentice of the godly Dr. Qian Qing. You and your sister, you've offended my godfather. Cough, cough, cough. You're dead meat. Ha! Ha ha! Ah!" Before he could finish laughing, he suddenly let out a short scream. Then, blood burst out from Zhao Chuanming's face. In the blink of an eye, his tongue was cut off, his ears were cut off, and his eyes became two bloody holes. Even his hands had been chopped off. His fingers were still trembling at the side, emitting a deathly greenish-gray color. "Useless trash. The leader sneered and sheathed his saber. His voice was full of disdain. "You can't even do such a small thing. What's the point of keeping you around?" Zhao Chunming originally thought that these people sent by Deng Hongfeng were here to save him. However, he would never have thought that in the end, the one who would completely destroy him would be the subordinates of his godfather, whom he had tried to please in every possible way. From now on, he would live a life worse than a pig or a dog, but he could neither die nor live. This was retribution. Everyone present was shocked, and no one would pay attention to him anymore. Everyone's eyes are focused on Shen Jinglin. "Shen Dashao, please." Shen Jinglin coldly looks at the people surrounding him. Chapter 273. The bearded man in the lead was at the Earth stage, and the surging profound energy aura was even thicker than his. It was almost impossible for him to deal with these people alone. However, it was absolutely impossible for him to follow this group of people obediently. Just now, he could already tell that this group of people captured him to deal with Yang Yang. "What if I don't leave?" "Not leaving?" The leader seemed to have heard a joke. "If young Master Shen doesn't want to leave, then I can only do what I did to Zhao Chunming, and cut off 2 parts from your body, such as a hand or a leg or something. Young Master Shen's leg has just been cured. I don't think he wants to be crippled again so soon." Shen Jinglin tightly clenched his fists, his eyes looking like they were about to spit fire. There was no trace of cowardice on his face. Instead, he assumed an attacking posture. Even if he dies, he will never allow himself to be a burden to Yang Yang. "Ha ha! You want to resist? Then don't blame us for being ruthless. You can only blame your younger sister. Who asked her to be blind and offend someone she shouldn't have?" As soon as his voice fell, the bearded man in the lead raised his long knife and fiercely slashed it towards Shen Jinglin. The majestic Xian Qi surged in the air, causing the people below the grandstand to reveal a horrified expression and retreat. Many people were full of sympathy and pity for Shen Jinglin. It wasn't easy for him to heal his leg injury and recover his cultivation, but he was going to become a cripple once more. Who was this Shen Jinglin's younger sister? How could he be so blind? It's not good to offend anyone in Tianyuan City, but he had to offend Dr. Deng of Xian Medical Pavilion. Wasn't that courting death? Profound qi surged in the air, and the pressure was cold and murderous. All of a sudden, melodious music drifted over from afar, approaching in spirals. The music was clearly like the flowing water of a high mountain, distant and gentle. But for some reason, it rang in his ears. However, it made the blood of everyone who heard it boil a little. Shen Jinglin, who had fallen into a desperate situation and was being besieged, suddenly raised his head, his eyes shining brightly. She seemed to feel guilty and touched at the same time. The rest of the people present seemed to be in a daze as they stood there with their heads raised, unable to come back to their senses for a long time. After a while, pink flower petals fluttered down from the sky. The flower petals were sparse and there weren't many of them. But as if it had a life of its own, it automatically stuck to the killers surrounding Shen Jinglin. The bearded man was still immersed in the music that tugged at his heartstrings. Suddenly feeling the petals falling on his face, he couldn't help but reach out to touch them. A strange fragrance accompanied by a bone-piercing chill seeped into the muscles and bones. The bearded man's heart skipped a beat. He had a bad feeling about this. However, before he could move, a loud bang rang out beside his ear, accompanied by a tearing pain, and the flesh on his body burst open. Blood-curdling screams came from the arena. In just a few short breaths, the dozen or so people surrounding Shen Jinglin had all fallen to the ground. Their bodies were badly mutilated, and besides letting out painful groans, they couldn't do anything else. In the sky, the melodious music was getting further and further away. However, the figure of a young girl in white seemed to descend from the sky and slowly landed on the arena. The young girl's face was like the snow on the heavenly mountain, cold and bright, inviolable. However, her every movement was filled with charm and indolence. Just by looking at her, one would fall head over heels for her. Chapter 274. When her feet touched the ground, her gaze landed on Shen Jinglin and the corners of her lips slowly curled up. Her entire body exuded a natural charm. Everyone who saw her could not help but hold their breaths as their souls were being taken away. "Brother, why are you taking so long to do something? If we don't go back now, we'll miss dinner time." The young girl's voice was indescribably clear and melodious, like ice beads falling on a jade plate, lingering around his ears. Shun Jinglin blushed with shame and said guiltily, "I'm sorry, Yang Yang, it's all because Big Brother is too useless. I still need you to save me." "How could it be Big Brother's fault?" Mu Yang chuckles and looks at the bearded man and the others who are lying on the ground. "I just heard you say that I'm blind and have offended someone I shouldn't have. I also heard you say that my brother doesn't know what's good for him, so you want to chop off some of his body parts." When she said this, the young girl's smile was bright and beautiful, and her tone was gentle. She was like a girl who was not familiar with the affairs of the world. But everyone, whether it was on or off the stage. But when he saw the young girl's smile, he felt an inexplicable chill run down his spine, and his whole body trembled. Suddenly, someone in the crowd stared at Mu Yang's face. Suddenly, a light flashed, and he let out a loud cry. She's the Enchantress Jun Muyan. She's that fairy doctor from the Junji Medical Center who can snatch a life from the hands of the King of Hell." In an instant, the entire place fell into a deathly silence. Absolute silence. Everyone present was dumbfounded. The Enchantress Mu Yang. This exceptionally beautiful young woman in front of him turns out to be Tianyuan City's most popular enchantress, Jun Muyan. So to say, Shun Jinglin was actually the Enchantress' older brother? And the person who offended the great elder of Xian Medical Pavilion, Deng Hongfeng, was Jun Muyan? Everyone was dumbfounded for a moment. The people who were just talking all at once, saying that Shun Jinglin's younger sister did not have good eyesight, at this time, all of them shut up. Can't say another word. What else could he say? No matter how powerful Deng Hongfeng's background was. But the Enchantress Muyan's medical skills have already reached the level of superlative workmanship, unparalleled under the heavens. Many people had analyzed that the Enchantress's medical skills might even be superior to the godly Dr. Qian Qing's. Who should he offend more? You only need to look at the current situation of the Junji Medical Center and the Hongfu Medical Center, and you'll be able to see it clearly. Ah, so Shun Jinglin is the Enchantress of Medicine's older brother, then it's no wonder that his cultivation base can progress, and his leg that was broken for a year can be restored to its original state. Someone suddenly cried out in surprise, suddenly realizing something. The others nodded one after another. Their gazes towards Shun Jinglin had long since lost the original pity, only envy and jealousy remained. Having a younger sister like Jun Muyan is really too fortunate. This was equivalent to Shun Jinglin having an extra life compared to ordinary people. Even if he suffers a fatal injury, Jun Muyan can still pull him back from the gates of hell. But for an ordinary person to see the Enchantress and ask for a diagnosis, it is extremely difficult. In fact, these people didn't know yet. Mu Yang isn't just a doctor who can snatch a life from the hands of the King of Hell. She's even a godly apothecary who can refine heaven-defying drafts. Nowadays, the Ghost City is in an uproar. Every time a special draft appears, it would be auctioned off at a sky-high price, and it's all from this girl's hands. One day, when the news came, it's not just the small city of Tianyuan that's shaken, but the entire Kaiyang country, and even the entire Yanwu continent. Chapter 275. The bearded man's entire body was trembling, and his eyes were filled with terror. He knew better than anyone how powerful this woman was. After Deng Hongfeng was slapped in the face in public, how could he take it lying down? He even went straight to the mercenary agency and spent a lot of money to hire a lot of mercenaries to kill this woman. However, no matter how much money was spent and how many mercenaries were dispatched, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. If he was alive, they couldn't see him. If he was dead, they couldn't see his corpse. Because Jun Muyan has a group of very frightening subordinates by her side. Every single one of them had an extremely high cultivation level, and when they joined forces, they could sweep through Tianyuan City. The mercenaries sent by Deng Hongfeng can't even get close to Muyan, let alone teach her a lesson. This was also the reason why Deng Hongfeng wanted Zhao Chunming to come forward and use Fang Jingya to draw Shun Jinglin out. As long as they catch Shen Jinglin, they won't have to be afraid that his younger sister, Jun Muyan, won't obediently submit. However, their wishful thinking was interrupted in the end. This woman not only had a group of experts by her side. She herself was an expert who was strong enough to make them tremble. "You, don't mess around." The bearded man's voice trembled as he growled in a threatening manner. "If you kill us, you'll have completely offended Dr. Deng. Do you know where Dr. Deng came from? His master is Chen Qing. Do you know who Dr. Chen Qing is? His Jingcheng country's national doctor. Even Princess Gong Chenxue treats him as a distinguished guest." Before the man could finish his words, he suddenly felt a heart-wrenching pain, causing him to let out a mournful howl. Then, as if he had gone mad, he kept digging at his flesh with his own hands. He couldn't hit his head against the ground. Even when the flesh on his face had been clawed off, revealing his ghastly white bones, he still refused to stop. The corners of Muyan's mouth are still hooked up in a shallow arc. But that smile didn't reach his eyes at all. Her beautiful peach blossom eyes were filled with bone-chilling coldness. "Is that so? I'm really looking forward to the consequences of completely offending Chen Qing's disciple." As soon as he finished speaking, there was a clang, and the sound of the zither turned into a blade, flowing with thousands of lights. In the blink of an eye, the musical notes transformed into swords that slit the throats of all the assassins in the arena. Killed in one move. Everyone was as quiet as a cicada in winter, and even a pin drop could be heard. Even Shen Jinglin was sluggish. He already knew that his sister was powerful, but he didn't expect her to be this powerful. Moreover, why did he feel that his sister was giving off an icy aura? Even he felt a trace of fear. Just at this moment, a clear childish voice rang out, "Mommy, come home." A fair and tender little hand grasps Muyan's slender and fair fingers, gently squeezing them. Mu Yang lowers her head to look at Xiaobao's handsome and exquisite little face. His icy blue eyes were like the clear sky, boundless and encompassing everything in the world. The corners of her mouth couldn't help but curve into a gentle smile. The ice-cold baleful aura around his body disappeared without a trace in an instant. He bent down and picked up Xiaobao. The gentle voice was like the sound of nature as it resounded by Shen Jinglin and Xiaobao's ears. "Ian, let's go home." At night, in the Junji Medical Center, Mu Yang looks at the scars all over the delicate woman's body under the light, and can't help but frown deeply. Even if she had seen all kinds of patients, and she had also suffered all kinds of torture in her past life. But the injuries on Fang Jingya's body still make her shocked. Chapter 276. Just the traces of inhumane abuse on the woman's lower body makes Muyan's eyes turn cold, her murderous aura awe-inspiring. She takes a deep breath, and slowly says, "Who did these things to you?" "Zhao Chunming." If it was that beast Zhao Chunming who did it, then the punishment that Big Brother gave him in the end was really light. Fang Jingya doesn't shyly cover up her ugly and dirty body that's full of scars. She only shakes her head in distress. "It wasn't Zhao Chunming. He liked to hit me, liked to burn me with candles, but the one who used that kind of insane method to abuse me was the godfather who sent me to him. The great elder of Xian Medical Pavilion, Deng Hongfeng." Muyan's pupils slightly contract. She listens to Fang Jingya continue. "Deng Hongfeng likes to rob women, but only a few people know about it. He simply can't, because he can't. He thought of all kinds of cruel methods to abuse women, to give vent to his perverted desires." As she speaks, she can't help but let tears slide down from the corners of her eyes. "In the beginning, I still wanted to resist, but the result of my resistance was that I became more and more miserable. In fact, I wanted to end my own life a long time ago. It was already so dirty, so why didn't I end my own life? Isn't it my own fault that I've ended up in this plight?" Muyan grabs the clothes on the side and firmly wraps her up. The voice that's usually languid has a rare softness. "Ending your own life is the most cowardly way to escape. Don't cry, I will cure the injuries on your body." Fang Jingya raises her tearful eyes to look at Muyan, deep gratitude welling up in the bottom of her eyes. "Miss Jun, thank you for not despising me for being so dirty, and for being willing to help me. But..." She slowly closes her eyes and takes a deep breath. When she opens them again, there's only determination left in her eyes. But I don't need treatment, I just want to leave this place, leave Chenyuan City forever, and disappear in front of Shinji. Miss Jun, can you promise me this? Muyin stares blankly. Why? Fang Jingya's tears drop by drop from the corners of her eyes. All the pain, mourning, guilt, and sadness interweave into despair. When Big Brother Shen was in the most danger, I chose to abandon him. Now that I've fallen into such a state, I only have myself to blame, but Elder Brother Shen is still willing to disregard everything to save me. In fact, for the sake of morality, for the sake of our past relationship, and for the sake of my current dire situation, he might even propose to marry me. But, how could I possibly marry Elder Brother Chen? Not to mention that Elder Brother Chen actually doesn't have feelings for me between a man and a woman. Even if he does, the current me simply isn't worthy of him. The more she spoke, the more her tears fell like a broken dam, and her voice was choked with sobs. My body is already dirty. In fact, you know better than anyone that I've lost the chance to be a mother forever under the ravages of those two bastards, Deng Hongfeng and Zhao Chunming. How can someone like me be worthy of standing beside Elder Brother Shen? He's such a good person, he deserves the most outstanding girl to become his wife. Fang Jingya grabs Muyin's hand, tears streaming down her face, but there's not the slightest trace of retreat or wavering in her eyes. Chapter 277. Muyin sighs softly. Are you really willing to leave my brother forever? Fang Jingya nods without hesitation. I'd rather never touch my feelings in this life. It's enough as long as I can silently watch Shen brother's happiness from afar. You've decided. You won't go back on your word. I vow to die without regrets. The emotions in Muyin's eyes slowly converge, turning into a touch of seriousness. She says in a low voice, Fang Jingya, I can help you kill Deng Hongfeng and avenge you. I can also give you enough strength to personally guard the things you want to guard. The condition is that you work for me for 10 years. Do you agree? Fang Jingya's eyes suddenly go wide, and she doesn't come back to herself for a long time. You're saying that you want me to work for you? You're not willing? No, I'm willing. Fang Jingya rolls down from the bed with a grunt, kneeling on the ground. I'm willing to serve you as my master. Henceforth, Fang Jingya's life is yours. Not to mention 10 or 20 years, even if it's a lifetime, how many people in Chenyuan City would be willing to work for Muyin? Not for anything else, just for the name of the Enchantress of Medicine, just for her medical skills that can bring the dead back to life. She, Fang Jingya, doesn't have the strength to truss a chicken, she's riddled with scars, and she has no innocence at all. But this woman in front of her is willing to take her in. If she's not willing, then she's really stupid. Muyin says with a smile that isn't a smile, what do I want your life for? But I have to say some ugly words first. Those who work for me must have enough ability, enough willpower, and pass my assessment. If you don't succeed, even with my brother's relationship, I will let you leave immediately. Hearing Muyin's seemingly heartless words, Fang Jingya's eyes brighten even more. Because this time, she believes that Muyin isn't pitying her, but really wants to cultivate her as a subordinate. For the current Fang Jingya, she's almost lost her goal and hope to live. But now, Muyin has given her a new one. To become stronger, to guard the man she's grateful to for a lifetime. Even if one day you marry a wife and have children, even if one day you have a house full of grandchildren, I am willing to watch over you in the dark and protect your happiness until the end of your life. Mu Yang calls for Yu Yang, then points to Fang Jingya and says, I'll leave this person to you to train. Yu Yang stared blankly, not quite understanding her master's meaning. He only listens to Muyin continue, I'll give you 3 months. Whether you poach from the ghost city or recruit from outside, after 3 months, form a mercenary corps that's no less than the Ink Camp. When Yu Yang heard this, her eyes suddenly lit up. Miss means, I can also be like Yang Shi and organize a team of experts. That's great, I'll go to the ghost city's WN Renku to pick people later. She had been jealous of Yang Haotian for a long time. Her strength is obviously not worse than Yang Haotian's, but Yang Haotian has the Ink Camp in his hands, and she can only manage the shop. It should be known that each and every one of the people in the Ink Camp is as arrogant as if they want to go to heaven. Other than Miss, Little Master, and Yang Haotian, that rock, he didn't care about anyone else. Unfortunately, these people are nothing if they're singled out, but when they're grouped together, their strength is terrifying. Plus, after entering Tianyuan City, Yang Haotian still continued to strengthen the ink camp according to Muyan's orders. This makes her extremely envious and jealous. Chapter 278. No, you're wrong. Who would have thought that Muyan would shake her head? This time, I don't want people from WN Renku. I want those who look unremarkable, who can blend in with the crowd and not be discovered. These people don't have high cultivation, but they must be good at disguise and hiding. I want you to train them for 3 months, and then let them sneak into Jingcheng and Huangyao. Yu Yang is a little disappointed when she hears Muyan's words at first. It must be known that Yang Haotian is picking elites, people who have killed their way through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. If she only picks some inconspicuous ones, wouldn't she be immediately outdone? However, the more she hears, the brighter Yu Yang's eyes become. Because she already understands. The Miss wants her to form this team of mercenaries, not to fight, but to spy on intelligence. After thinking it through, Yu Yang nods again and again, carefully listening to Muyan's instructions. The more she listens, the more she admires the Miss's foresight and wisdom. Moreover, Yu Yang doesn't doubt whether this team of experts can be formed, and whether they have enough loyalty. Don't forget who Muyan is. Not only is she an enchantress who can snatch a life from the hands of the King of Hell, but she's also a godly apothecary who can refine a heaven-defying potion. Everything that needs to be explained has been explained. Muyan's line of sight sweeps over Fang Jingya, and she slowly says, "This camp is called Tianji, with you as the leader and Jingya as your assistant. Tonight, I will cure Jingya's injuries. Tomorrow morning, you will leave with her to prepare." "Yes, Miss." Yu Yang leaves, full of joy. Fang Jingya, on the other hand, puts on her clothes, and respectfully kneels in front of Muyan. "Jingya will never forget Mrs. Grace of Rebirth. I will definitely go through water and tread on fire to serve Miss." Muyan curls up the corner of her lips, slightly narrowing her eyes as she says, "You can rest assured, I will definitely let you see the miserable end of your enemies. Whether it's the Xian Medical Pavilion that harmed your entire Fang family, or Deng Hongfeng." However, what Muyan didn't expect is that she still hasn't made a move against Deng Hongfeng. Deng Hongfeng's scheme has already fallen on the Junji Medical Center. Due to Muyan's growing fame, compared to those doctors who were previously unwilling to accept the Junji Medical Center's offer to provide medical services, there are now a bunch of doctors who are cracking their heads, wanting to drill into the Junji Medical Center. Just because, working in the Junji Medical Center, they might be able to witness the miraculous medical skills of the Enchantress of Medicine with their own eyes. Because Mu Yang herself is busy with too many things. Therefore, in the end, he still chose a few honest people with solid medical skills to serve in the clinic. Those who come to the Junji Medical Center aren't all terminally ill. These doctors are more than enough to treat common illnesses, so even if Muyan only treats a few patients a day, it doesn't affect the popularity of Junji Medical Center. On this day, the clinic opened as usual. It was bustling with people coming and going. Suddenly, a woman's scream came from Dr. Yu's seat not far away. "Husband, husband, how are you? Don't scare me." Hearing the voice, everyone turned their gazes over. A beautiful woman was supporting a tall middle-aged man. The middle-aged man's face turned pale. He spat out a mouthful of blood and staggered before collapsing. Chapter 279. But why did my husband become like this after he was pricked with needles? Dr. Yu is also somewhat flustered. He promptly steps out of his position and crouches down next to the middle-aged man. But before Dr. Yu can take his pulse with his trembling hands, the middle-aged man's whole body is already twitching, and his eyes turn white in a split second. "Husband!" The beautiful woman screams again. She reaches out to check her husband's breath, but she finds that it's already completely gone. "Dead. Dead. My husband is dead. Boo-hoo-hoo, husband, how could you leave me alone?" Dr. Yu's hand is still holding that middle-aged man's wrist. Feeling the deathly stillness under his skin without a pulse, His complexion also goes deathly pale. This middle-aged man is actually really dead. How is this possible? I've clearly taken his pulse. There's nothing wrong with his condition. How could this be? It's you. You're the one who killed him. The beautiful woman suddenly jumps up from the ground, grabbing Dr. Yu's collar and shouting, "You quack, return my husband's life." Although Dr. Yu is a doctor, his cultivation is lower than this beautiful woman's. Being dragged by her, he simply can't break free. He can only shout in a panic, "Impossible. It's really impossible. It's clearly impossible." The beautiful woman doesn't care about what he's saying. She drags him to the door and starts to yell at the top of her voice. "Someone come someone come quickly The Junji Medical Center treated someone to death, but they refuse to admit it. They say that there's an enchantress who can bring the dead back to life, but in fact, they're all quacks. My husband was only lightly injured, but when he was treated by the doctors here, he died instead. This commotion alarms everyone inside and outside the medical center. The Inc. Camp's practitioners responsible for the medical center's safety these past few days see Dr. Yu being dragged away, and they promptly rush over to rescue her. The Inc. Camp's sweating men are all rough and clumsy. They don't seem to use much strength in their movements, but that beautiful woman unexpectedly stumbles and falls to the ground. Soon after, she starts to cry in an earth-shattering manner. Is there still law in Tianyuan City? The Junji Medical Center treated someone to death, and now they still want to kill this widow to silence her. Everyone, quickly come and judge for me. Could it be that the so-called Enchantress can treat human life as grass, recklessly harming people? The woman was a beautiful woman. Even if she were to throw a tantrum and cry like this, I would still feel sorry for her. In addition, someone went to take a look at the middle-aged man lying on the ground. Sure enough, he was no longer breathing and his body was cold. It was obvious that he was already dead. This time, the crowd of onlookers and the patients seeking treatment at the Junji Medical Center immediately start pointing at the people from the Inc. Camp and Dr. Yu. I saw that man just now. His injuries weren't that serious. Who knew he would die in the blink of an eye? It's definitely because the Junji Medical Center's doctors didn't treat him well and killed him. Oh my, there's actually this kind of quack in Junji Medical Center. I think we'd better not look here. What if my minor illness is also cured to the point that it's beyond cure? Those big men in the Inc. Camp are simply extremely sullen. He couldn't wait to rush over and tear that beautiful woman apart. They clearly didn't do anything, and yet they said that they wanted to silence them. If they really wanted to kill someone, would it be her turn to speak here? Seeing that the situation couldn't be suppressed any longer, Old Dao promptly sends someone to the backyard to inform Mu Yang. Chapter 280. Dr. Yu's face was filled with panic, but his eyes were filled with confusion. I'm not sure either. When I examined him, he really only suffered from ordinary internal injuries. I used acupuncture to force out the extravasated blood in his body. Originally, he should have recovered after taking medicine for 2 days. But I don't know how it became like this. Old Dao narrowed his eyes and looked at the middle-aged man who was bleeding from his 7 orifices. He had a bad premonition in his heart. Just then, a large group of people dressed in uniform suddenly rush into Junji Medical Center with fiendish expressions. I am Tianyuan City's Deputy General Lu. I heard that there was a murder case in Junji Medical Center. Is this true? As soon as the beautiful woman saw this group of people, it was as if she had met her savior. She rushed over and knelt on the ground, tears streaming down her face as she said, Lord Deputy General, you must seek justice for my husband. My husband was a good person, but after being treated by this quack of Junji Medical Center, he unexpectedly died like this. Now they still want to use their power to silence me. I beseech the city governor and Lord Deputy General to seek justice for this common woman. Vice General Lu listened to the perfect woman's complaint. His sharp gaze swept across and landed on the dead middle-aged man. With a wave of his hand, he shouts in a deep voice, the Junji Medical Center has caused the death of a person. This crime is unforgivable. Guards, go and arrest everyone in the Junji Medical Center for me, including their shopkeeper, and bring them all back to the penal prison. Old Dao's complexion turns completely unsightly in a split second. This Deputy General, the matter still hasn't been thoroughly investigated. How can you casually convict our Junji Medical Center? Right now, we can't be sure that this patient was killed by a doctor from our clinic. Who else could it be other than you guys? The beautiful woman sobbed. Before that, my husband was clearly fine, but after this doctor examined him, he died just like that. If he wasn't the one who killed him, could it be that I killed my own husband? Old Dao had already realized that something was wrong. Even if the doctor in the medical center really killed someone, how could the officials arrive so quickly? It was obvious that this was a trap deliberately set up against their medical center. Old Dao was about to speak when another shout came from the door. Get out of the way. Dr. Deng of Xian Medical Pavilion has graced us with his presence. What are you still standing there for, still not coming to greet him? Hearing that, everyone turned around to look. Deng Hongfeng swaggered in, escorted by a few servants. When Deputy General Lu saw him, he immediately showed a respectful expression. Dr. Deng, why are you here? I heard that someone in this Junji Medical Center had been treated to death, so I came to take a look. As Deng Hongfeng spoke, he frowned and shook his head. That's why I've said it before. Not every Tom, Dick, or Harry can open a clinic and become a doctor. The benevolence of doctors was to save lives. What right did a clinic that had killed people have to exist? In the future, I will definitely have Xian Medical Pavilion raise the standards for examining doctors. I can't let those quacks mix with doctors to harm others. Vice General Lu nodded again and again, with a flattering smile on his face. Dr. Deng, you are the only senior doctor in our Tianyuan city. How can those little girls who haven't even fully grown hair compare to her? Who doesn't know that Dr. Chen Qing is Yanwu continent's #1 godly doctor? What Enchantress of medicine, music doctor, hehe, they're not even fit to carry shoes for him and you. Deng Hongfeng nodded arrogantly, then walked to the side of the middle-aged man and squatted down to take a look. Chapter 281. When the beautiful woman heard this, her eyes immediately lit up and she loudly said, even Dr. Deng has said so, what else do you have to say? Lord Deputy General, you must not let the murderer go. Deputy General Lu immediately waves his hand, there's a murderous look in his eyes. Come, take away all the murderers for me and interrogate them, seal up the Junji Medical Center. The sabers and swords in the hands of the people below clanged, and they were about to speak. Suddenly, a melodious and sweet-sounding voice drifted over with a hint of indifference. Murderer? Ha ha, who told you that this man is dead? Almost at the same time, everyone turned to look at the source of the sound. He saw a young girl dressed in green slowly walking over, holding the hand of a child of about 4 or 5 years old. The girl's makeup was light, but her face was as delicate and beautiful as the bright moon. Her slightly raised eyebrows and the corner of her eyes contained a trace of indescribable languid charm. Just a glance at those sparkling peach blossom eyes would cause one's mind to be seized and their soul to be hooked. And she was holding the little boy by her hand. He was clearly at such a tender age, but his handsome face was expressionless. His blue eyes were as cold as ice. As he slowly walked over, he unconsciously emitted a noble aura that was impossible to ignore. Many of the people present had never seen Muyan before. As soon as he saw her, it was as if he had lost his soul, and he could not recover for a long time. But there were also people who had seen her true appearance. After a moment of absent-mindedness, she couldn't help but cry out in alarm, Enchantress. It's the Enchantress. This shout caused the atmosphere in the medical center to suddenly change. Everyone looked at her with eager eyes. That atmosphere of quack doctors in Junji Medical Center just a moment ago disappears without a trace in a split second. The strength of a doctor did not depend on their eloquence and their titles. Instead, it was true strength. Muyan, on the other hand, uses her godly medical skills to conquer almost everyone in Tianyuan City. It was the complete opposite of those people's admiration. The moment Deng Hongfeng sees Mu Yang, his eyes almost spurt fire. Bitch, it's all because of this bitch. He had caused his reputation in Tianyuan City to fall to the ground. Now, even the Hongfu Medical Center would not be able to continue operating. At this moment, when he looked at this woman, he could no longer feel any greed. There was only hatred that made him want to tear her into pieces. But very quickly, he endured it and sneered, "What did I just hear? You said this person is not dead. Ha ha ha, the so-called Enchantress of medicine is actually at this level? Saying that this person isn't dead, would your Junji Medical Center's own doctors believe it? Dr. Yu and the few other people in the Junji Medical Center who have seen the condition of that middle-aged man all have gloomy expressions as they lower their heads. They have been practicing medicine for decades, and they also have the qualifications of Xian Medical Pavilion's doctors. They could tell if a person was really dead or not." Dr. Yu shakily walks in front of Muyan, and he bends his knees, about to kneel down. "Miss, I've implicated you." However, before his knees could touch the ground, Muyan grabs him. The corners of his mouth rose slightly, and a sharp and leisurely smile appeared in his eyes. "It's still too early to say whether I've implicated you or not." Chapter 282. Deputy General Lu is originally looking at Mu Yang in a daze, his soul has been hooked away. Hearing the beautiful woman's call at this time, he suddenly sobers up. Meeting Deng Hongfeng's insidious eyes, he shudders and immediately resumes his fiendish appearance. "Alright, it's already an established fact that your Junji Medical Center's quack doctors harm people and treat human life as grass. No matter how you quibble, it's useless. Just obediently follow me. Someone come." Deputy General Lu's words stir up the atmosphere. But Mu Yang doesn't seem to hear anything at all. She calmly passes through the guards, like she's taking a leisurely stroll in a courtyard, slowly arriving in front of that middle-aged man. "Smelly woman, I'm talking to you, didn't you hear me?" Being ignored like this, Deputy General Lu immediately flies into a rage out of shame. His large palm, like a cattail leaf fan, is about to ruthlessly grab Mu Yang's shoulder. However, before Deputy General Lu's hand can touch Mu Yang, Xiao Bao expressionlessly lifts his hand that isn't being held, and pushes it out. Bang! There's a loud noise, and before everyone can even react, Deputy General Lu has already been sent flying out. Deputy General Lu was sent flying and crashed into a pillar, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Everyone is so shocked by this turn of events that they can't come back to their senses. No one even saw clearly who did it in that split second just now. At this time, Mu Yang has already arrived in front of that dead middle-aged man. She reaches out and gently touches Xiao Bao's head. "Guard Nyang Qin for me. Before I cure him, don't let anyone approach." Xiao Bao's little face is taut, and he nods in all seriousness. After instructing Xiao Bao, Mu Yang doesn't care about anything else. She takes out her silver needles and attentively inserts them into the major acupuncture points on the middle-aged man's head. Everyone in the clinic looks at each other in dismay, all somewhat dumbfounded. Can the dead really be brought back to life? That person really didn't die. How is that possible? Just now, you also went to check his breath, but there was no reaction at all. Moreover, his body is already cold. How could he still be brought back to life? But don't forget, that's the Enchantress of medicine who can snatch a life from the King of Hell. That's right, that woman's intestinal blockage a few days ago, didn't that doctor in Tianyuan City say that it was incurable? But as the Enchantress made her move, the disease was cured within a day. Deng Hongfeng's expression became more and more unsightly as he listened to everyone's discussion. She knew that it was impossible for that man to come back to life. But for some reason, a bad feeling welled up in his heart. His fierce gaze swept over Deputy General Lu, who had just gotten up. Deputy General Lu pressed down on his aching abdomen, gritted his teeth, and waved his hand. "Charge! If anyone in the Junji Medical Center dares to resist, kill without mercy." As soon as this was said, the patients in the clinic all revealed a horrified expression. They screamed and hid in the corner. But what's strange is that the people of Junji Medical Center, with the exception of those doctors in charge, are all calm and unperturbed. They don't even have the slightest intention of stopping them. Old Dao glances at Xiao Bao, who is standing guard in front of Mu Yang. He can't help but roll his eyes in disdain. Just based on this group of idiots, they wanted to gain any advantage from the young master. Haha, as long as he doesn't die too miserably. This thought had just flashed through old Dao's mind. Bang, bang, bang. The dozen or so city guard mansion guards were thrown out one by one like broken gunny sacks. Deputy General Liu spat out another mouthful of blood. This time, he could not get up for a long time. Chapter 283. At this moment, they have no choice but to believe that the person who just made a move was actually this child. A 4 or 5-year-old child actually easily knocked down more than a dozen strong men with high cultivation bases. Where did this monster come from? Puff, cough, cough, cough. Just as everyone is in absolute silence from the shock, a violent cough comes from the ground. Everyone's line of sight stiffly turns over. Then, they're completely dumbfounded. God! What did they just see? That middle-aged man actually really came back to life. The entire clinic falls into a deathly silence. Soon after, they hear the middle-aged man cough again, and slowly sits up. That pair of eyes, still dripping with dark red blood tears, just happens to meet the beautiful woman's eyes. Ah! A terrified scream pierces through the sky. The beautiful woman, who was just crying pitifully, now sits down on the ground in fear. Her face is deathly pale, and her body is trembling like a sieve. Ghost! Ghost! Don't come over, don't come over. I didn't mean to kill you, don't come looking for me. The middle-aged man still hasn't come back to his senses, and his first reaction when he sees the beautiful woman is to call out, "Ginny? What happened to you?" He didn't expect that in return, the beautiful woman would tremble even more in fear. At this time, the other people in the clinic also come to their senses. He came back to life. He really came back to life. God! It turns out that the Enchantress of Medicine really has the ability to bring people back from the dead. This is the first time I've seen such godly medical skills. The Enchantress of Medicine really deserves to be called the #1 genius doctor in Tianyuan City. What Tianyuan City? Such magical medical skills are simply unheard of, unseen. It should be said that she's #1 in the Yenwu stage. Everyone's discussion makes Deng Hongfeng's smug expression freeze in place. He looks at the middle-aged man who has already climbed up from the ground, and then looks at Muyan, who is looking at him with a smile that isn't a smile. His complexion can be said to be extremely unsightly. Muyan claps her hands, and leisurely says, "Dr. Deng, you just said that the Enchantress of Medicine only has this level. May I ask what level it is?" As she spoke, she clenched her left hand into a fist and gently tapped the palm of her right hand. With a lazy smile, she said, "Actually, I would like to ask Dr. Deng, what kind of medical skill is a doctor who can't even tell whether a person is dead or alive?" Phut! Someone couldn't help but laugh out loud. Deng Hongfeng couldn't bear it any longer. He roars, "Jun Muyan, don't go too far. Don't forget, I'm a senior doctor of Xian Medical Pavilion. How can a woman like you judge me? Xian Medical Pavilion's senior doctor can't even diagnose whether a person is dead or alive. It looks like this doctor rating assessment issued by Xian Medical Pavilion isn't very convincing." As soon as these words came out, the clinic fell silent for a moment. Then, a burst of low whispers broke out. Deng Hongfeng's expression became uglier and uglier. That's because from the crowd's discussion, he really hears things like it seems that Xian Medical Pavilion is indeed unfair. In fact, godly Dr. Chen Qing doesn't have such magical medical skills as the Enchantress of Medicine. Do you still remember Dr. Fang from back then? Because they opposed Xian Medical Pavilion's overbearingness, their whole family was exterminated. In addition to hatred and madness, there was also a faint sense of panic in his heart. Master had him come over to develop Xian Medical Pavilion's forces. Chapter 284. Jun Muyan doesn't care about him. Instead, she looks at that beautiful woman. "Oh, that's right. Was it you who just said that my clinic treated someone to death?" The beautiful woman meets Muyan's pair of bottomless peach blossom eyes, and her whole body quivers. Repeatedly shaking her head, she says, No, I made a mistake. This commoner woman was just anxious about my husband." Anxious about your husband? The corners of Muyan's mouth slightly curve up. "But why did I just hear you say that you didn't mean to harm him? Moreover, If you really were anxious about your husband, then when you saw him come back to life, your first reaction wasn't to be wild with joy, but to fall to the ground in fright. Saying that, Muyan also pouts at Dr. Yu. You see, the person you accused of killing your husband, when he saw your husband come back to life, he didn't feel afraid at all. Instead, he was very happy. Being called out, Dr. Yu is simply overwhelmed by the favor. He promptly bows deeply towards Muyan, and when he raises his head, the rims of his eyes are red. Many thanks to Miss for saving me. Muyan smiles at him, but doesn't say anything. Hearing Muyan's question, the middle-aged man is already looking at the beautiful woman with a sharp gaze. The beautiful woman can't help but tremble from head to toe. I just didn't think that my husband would still be alive. So happy. Halfway through her words, a hand suddenly clutches her throat. The middle-aged man coldly says, "No wonder when I stood up, I felt pain in my neck. That was when you attacked me, wasn't it? You vicious woman, I've been good to you, how could you treat me like this?" Saying that, the 5 fingers suddenly tighten. The beautiful woman's eyes widen in horror, and she can't bear it anymore. She lets out a hoarse begging for mercy. "No, it wasn't me, it was the people from the Hongfu Medical Center who made me kill you in the Junji Medical Center, and then frame them. People from the Hongfu Medical Center? Who?" The beautiful woman looks towards Deng Hongfeng with tears in her eyes. But she suddenly feels a sharp pain in her head, and then she completely loses her breath. The one who did it wasn't the middle-aged man, but a guard beside Deng Hongfeng. That guard looks very ordinary, but when he made his move just now, he exudes a frightening cultivation aura. This aura was so terrifying that everyone present felt a chill down their spines and broke out in a cold sweat. After returning to Deng Hongfeng's side, he sneered and said, "A vicious woman dares to frame a senior doctor. She must be tired of living. And you?" He looks at Muyan, his eyes are so cold that they can freeze people. "Keep your mouth clean for me. The Grand Xian Medical Pavilion isn't something that a silly little girl like you can provoke." When Xiaobao heard that someone was insulting his mother, his eyes flashed with coldness, and he took a step forward to attack. However, Mu Yang quickly pressed down on his shoulder. This guard's aura was very dangerous. Although her cultivation is not as good as hers, Muyan has an inexplicable intuition of danger. Especially when he was hiding behind Deng Hongfeng just now, and even she did not notice him. She herself might not be afraid to make a move, but the innocent patients of Junji Medical Center might suffer a calamity. Deng Hongfeng's eyes lit up when he saw the guard's action. "Guardian Li, you're finally willing to help." He was clearly a guard, but Deng Hongfeng was extremely respectful towards him. Chapter 285. His cold gaze sweeps over Deng Hongfeng, and finally falls on Muyan. "If you want to blame someone, blame this woman. She actually dared to insult Xian Medical Pavilion. Today, seeing that you're already a senior doctor of Xian Medical Pavilion, I won't take your life, I'll just give you a little lesson." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure disappeared from where he was like a flash of lightning. By the time everyone comes to their senses, a palm wrapped in powerful internal force is already ruthlessly swatting down on Muyan. This palm isn't just rolling and vigorous internal force, it's also boundless. What's even more frightening is the sinister air that's being emitted from it. Even the people who are a little closer, when they come into contact with that little bit of sinister air, they feel their chi churning, their skin burning like it's on fire. Everyone in the Junji Medical Center, including old Dao and the others, all show frightened and worried expressions. Some people can't help but shout, "Be careful, Enchantress of Medicine." Even Xiao Bao feels that curling internal force heatwave, and feels a suffocating sense of oppression. His cold and handsome little face tightens in a split second. However, before he could get ready for battle, his collar is pulled, and is directly pulled behind him. A fair, jade-like palm slowly pushes out. Under that wave-like sinister internal force, this pair of jade hands seems like they could be destroyed at any time. But in the next moment, a miraculous scene happens. In the air, the white jade palms suddenly flip and overlap, layers upon layers of afterimages, like layers of Tianshan snow lotuses blooming. Then, there's clearly no strings being plucked. Everyone's ears seem to hear a melodious and sweet-sounding sound of a zither. Following the sound of the zither, the Black Indian internal force seems to have encountered its nemesis. It's quickly swallowed up. Those that aren't swallowed also flee in panic like stray dogs. A trace of shock finally appears on the face of the guard, who has always been aloof. Just then, the two hands meet. Clang. This is the droning sound of a zither. Bang. This is the collision of internal force when the two palms collide. The two people simultaneously retreat. Muyin takes 3 steps back. That protector Lee takes 7 steps back. When he finally stabilizes his figure, his complexion turns green and white, so unsightly that it could drip ink. His eyes are fixed on Mu Yang, almost unable to control his tone and emotions. You, just who are you? She was obviously a young girl who wasn't even 20 years old, but she was actually able to exchange blows with him. Didn't that mean he had to have a Xiantian cultivation? No, it was definitely not as simple as a Xiantian master, but how was that possible? Before Muyin can answer, Deng Hongfeng rushes to yell and shout, "This smelly woman is called Jun Muyin." Relying on her little medical skills, she completely doesn't put our Xian medical pavilion in her eyes. She even insults master with her word. During this period of time, Deng Hongfeng had been suppressed by Mu Yang to the point of being too aggrieved. He had never felt so aggrieved before. He thought of all kinds of methods to kill Muyin, but there was nothing he could do. Even the mercenaries didn't come back. Of course, he knew how powerful Protector Li was, but who was Protector Li? He was one of his master's most trusted aides. How could he order them around? He didn't even dare to use words to bluff them. It was because Protector Li was too terrifying. His entire body seemed to be covered in poison, and if one were to get close to him and anger him, their lives would be in danger. But he didn't expect that today, that idiot Jun Muyin would actually anger Protector Li. Wouldn't that be courting death? Chapter 286. Protector Li, you must teach him a good lesson today. Deng Hongfeng firmly believes that after listening to his words, Protector Li wouldn't be able to stop himself from making his move again. This time, it would take Muyin's life. Unexpectedly, Protector Li's complexion only becomes even more unsightly after listening to his words. Then without saying a word, he turns around and leaves. Kill Muyin? Are you kidding me? Right now, let alone killing someone, it's almost impossible for him to even move. There's a burst of fiery pain in his chest. If he doesn't leave immediately, he wouldn't be able to stop himself from spitting out a mouthful of blood. Protector Li's eyes are filled with resentment and anger. His figure quickly disappears without a trace like lightning. As for that idiot Deng Hongfeng, if he dies, then he dies. What's the big deal? In any case, Master has a lot of apprentices. Deng Hongfeng is struck dumb. Protector Li, why are you leaving? He shouts, wanting to follow him out. But before he could step out of the door, his feet stagger, and he falls flat on his face. Then he hears Muyin's chuckling voice, Deng Hongfeng, where do you think this place is? You can come and go as you please. Deng Hongfeng's fall isn't light. It's quite a while before he can raise his head, shaking it. But he finds out that the patients of the Junji Medical Center have already been driven out. The only ones left are the people from the Ink camp, his subordinates, and Deputy General Lu's group. Everyone is hung upside down and tied up. The people from the Ink camp are grinning as they take off their clothes. Deng Hongfeng shudders, his voice sharp and thin. Jun Muyin, what do you want to do? I'm an elder of the Xian Medical Pavilion, I'm the genius doctor's apprentice. What do you dare to do to me? Bang! A foot steps on his head, directly pushing him into the ground. Pa! A thick spit is spat on his face. The Ink camp's Guan who picks his teeth and says sloppily, what are you being so noisy for? Lao's ears are about to go deaf from your noise. Do you believe that I won't step on your eggs if you keep making noise? You lowly slave, you actually dare to, Before Deng Hongfeng could finish his words, there's really a foot that directly steps on his unspeakable position. With a cracking sound, everyone seemed to have heard the sound of eggs breaking. Everyone, including old Dao who is watching from the sidelines, as well as Guan who just spoke, have goosebumps on their bodies. He kept feeling a chill in his crotch. Looking at Chang Yu, who had just moved his leg, both of them shuddered. That's because Chang Yu is the first to break through in the ink camp, and is also the first to choose to be loyal to Xiao Bao. Therefore, his image had always been more mature, prudent, and somewhat gentle. But he didn't expect that his opponent would be such a ruthless person. Chang Yu retracted his leg, but acted as if nothing had happened. He said indifferently, "The scene is rather bloody. Does Miss want to take the young master away?" Everyone looks at Mu Yan and Xiao Bao. Xiao Bao clenches Mu Yang's fingers. Mu Yang smiled faintly and said, "All right. I'll leave the rest to you. I don't need any confessions or promises, as long as he doesn't die too easily." Deng Hongfeng, who was in so much pain from his balls being crushed, suddenly widened his eyes, which were filled with fear and pleading. Unfortunately, no one here will pay attention to him. Just as Mu Yang is about to turn around, she pauses. She faintly looks at Deng Hongfeng for a moment, then says, "Go and call Big Brother. I believe that he would also want to see this man's end." Chapter 287. Mu Yang leads Xiao Bao back to the room. As soon as they entered, Xiao Bao threw himself into her arms and hugged her thigh tightly. She raised her head, her blue eyes wide open, but the rims of her eyes were red. She didn't say a word, but her pink lips were trembling as if she was wronged and afraid. Mu Yan's heart softens all of a sudden. She quickly crouches down and takes him into her arms. Her voice is unbelievably soft. "Baby, don't be afraid. Nyang Qin only suffered a very light injury. It will be fine after a simple treatment. If you don't believe me, use your Xian Qi to check it out. Mother really doesn't feel uncomfortable at all, and she won't get sick." Her small hand grasps Mu Yan's wrist, but her palm is cold. One could imagine how scared and worried he was just now. Internal force surges in and finds that Mu Yan's injury is really light. Only then does the little body's taut nerves suddenly relax. However, Xiao Bao is still clutching Mu Yan's clothes. His slightly trembling body is tightly buried in her bosom. His low voice is full of complaint and grievance. Xiao Bao doesn't want Nyang Qin to get hurt, not even a light injury. "Okay, I will protect myself in the future. Xiao Bao, treat mother's injuries." The corner of Mu Yang's mouth curls up as she carries Xiao Bao to the table. With a wave of his finger, the Tianmo Qin appears on his seat. Little Treasure placed his little hand on it. His movements were somewhat clumsy, but his expression was unusually serious. With the sound of the music, the dried up and burning sea of qi slowly seemed to be moistened by a sweet spring. The smile in Mu Yan's eyes is full of tenderness. No matter how many people were around her, Xiao Bao was always the first to notice that something was wrong with her body. But what surprised her was, even old Dao did not notice it, but Chang Yu actually discovered it. It seemed that Chang Yu's innate talent might be even higher than she had expected. There was also the protector Li that Deng Hongfeng mentioned. Mu Yang slightly narrows her eyes, a cold light flickering in them. That person's profound qi was filled with a sinister aura that could corrode flesh and blood. If she remembered correctly, this should be a poison man that Chen Qing had spent dozens of years cultivating. "He, I really didn't expect it to come knocking on my door so soon." The sound of the zither stops, and Mu Yang slowly exhales. Xiao Bao lifts his small face and looks at Mu Yang with concern. Mu Yan takes out a bottle of draft and gulps it down. Soon after, she reveals a smile. "Thank you, Xiao Bao. Nyang Qin has already recovered." Little Treasure's eyes shone brightly, and there was an imperceptible joy in his eyes. However, because he was treating him, he had consumed too much of his profound qi, so Xiao Bao immediately felt sleepy. Her little head nodded, and her thick black eyelashes drooped. Mu Yang's heart ached as she held him in her arms and placed him on the bed. Then, she turned around and left the room. His figure was like a phantom, silently disappearing into the night. "Protector Li, what's wrong with you? Where's Dr. Deng?" "Get lost." The door slammed shut, and he couldn't hold back his second mouthful of blood. Protector Li's eyes are filled with haze and ruthlessness, his mouth muttering that name, Jun Muyan. Jun Muyan. Suddenly, Guardian Li's expression froze and he frowned slightly. "Wait a minute. Why did he find the name Jun Muyan somewhat familiar? Moreover, he felt as if he had seen the girl's incomparably charming face somewhere before. As Protector Lee pondered, he clutched his chest and went to the cabinet. He took out a bottle of draught and poured it into his mouth. The draught slowly took effect, and it began to repair the damage to his meridians and internal organs. Chapter 288. With one hand on his abdomen, he looks down and sees that his clothes are stained with the blood that he himself spat out. Ever since he was trained by the Lord into a poison man and advanced to the pre-celestial stage. When has he ever suffered such humiliation? Jun Muyan is just a woman, how could she have such great ability? Suddenly Protector Lee's eyes widen, his eyes filled with shock. He remembers. It's that girl, that Jun Muyan, that woman who accidentally ran into the master, sought medical advice from the master, and was finally diagnosed as pregnant. But how is this possible? Shouldn't that girl who got pregnant out of wedlock already be dead? The fetus in her belly should have already been dug out by Princess Chenxue. At that time, Princess Chenxue gave the master great benefits for the sake of this fetus. It's also because of these benefits that the master was able to train them into invincible poison men. But why is this person still alive, and how could she become so powerful? The more Protector Lee thinks, the more alarmed he is. Then a delicate and handsome little face unconsciously flashes through his mind. A child of only 4 or 5 years old, and he can kill a profound stage practitioner at will. Ho! He sucks in a mouthful of cold air, his body trembling because of extreme excitement. Don't tell me that child is that immortal fetus from that time? Yes, the timing is right, such talent and innate bone structure are also right. Ha ha ha, the immortal fetus and the immortal mother, if I tell the Lord will definitely reward me. Jun Muyan, just wait for you to die without a burial. Your flesh and blood will become our best tonic, and even your son will become the elixir for the master to cross the tribulation and ascend. Ha ha ha. Thinking of this, Protector Lee couldn't bear it anymore. He doesn't even care about the injuries on his body. He casually tidies himself up, and wants to rush to Jingcheng country overnight to report this shocking secret to Chen Qing. However, Protector Lee hasn't reached the door. The door of the room is suddenly slowly pushed open from the outside. Because of the poor lighting inside and outside, Protector Lee can't clearly see the figures of the people outside. He only faintly feels that the surrounding air is filled with a kind of powerful pressure that almost suffocates him. Who are you people? He can only see that there are 2 people standing outside, and they are 2 tall and terrifying men. Especially the one in front. Even though Protector Lee couldn't see his face clearly, he could still feel the pressure emanating from his body. It was a pressure that made everything in the world submit to him. Just now, you said that you wanted someone to die a horrible death. The man's voice was deep and magnetic, indescribably sexy and majestic. But when Protector Lee heard it, he didn't know why, but his body couldn't help but tremble. He was a mid-level Xiantian. Who in the world could make him tremble? You were sent by Jun Muyan? Protector Lee gritted his teeth and roared in a threatening manner. What? She's afraid that I'll know the identity of her and her bastard, so she wants to kill me? I'm telling you, you better not push me too far, otherwise. Before he could finish, a pair of hands clasped his neck. The hands were dry and cold. When he grabbed his neck, it was as if a piece of 1,000-year-old ice had blocked his windpipe. Protector Lee's eyes widened in horror and his legs kicked wildly. The man's cold voice rang in her ears. Who are you calling a bastard? Chapter 289. However, that man is certainly not simple. After all, that bastard has an immortal physique. Haha, if a living immortal physique is refined into an elixir, it can let my master ascend in an instant. Say, if this news were to spread, who in the Yenwu continent wouldn't want this mother and son? Would they still have a place to stay in the future? As he says these words, Protector Lee feels the man's mood fluctuate. This is the time. An ominous glint flashes in his eyes, and his hands suddenly move. A thick black smoke suddenly sprays out. The smoke curls up, touching the door frame, the floor, and the furniture. The room unexpectedly emits a terrible sizzling sound. Just by being touched by this smoke, the furniture in the room actually starts to melt. It's enough to imagine how poisonous this smoke is. Protector Lee feels the tight grip on his neck loosen, and he immediately takes a step back. He laughs heartily. How is it? The bone-rotting powder that Master personally refined, it tastes pretty good. Ha 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 ha. This is a poison that can even corrode a pre-celestial expert's body. Ah. The complacent laughter suddenly turned into a terrified and shrill scream. Protector Lee's entire body flies out uncontrollably, and he heavily hits the wall. But he doesn't fall after hitting the wall, instead, he firmly sticks to it. That's because there are countless long steel nails on his limbs, shoulders, and body. Blood gurgles down along the steel nails, quickly drenching his clothes. The intense pain makes Protector Lee wish he could immediately faint. Soon after, he sees two figures slowly coming out from the thick smoke. It's clearly a corrosive smoke, but when it touches those two people, there's not even the slightest reaction. Even as the two people walk step by step, the thick smoke seems to fear and submit, automatically moving to the sides. And Protector Lee finally sees the appearance of the man in the lead. It's a handsome face that could make all the women in the world go crazy. The tall figure, every inch of it has a perfect curve, and there's a power that can make people's blood boil. But the most shocking thing isn't his appearance, but his temperament. Graceful, noble, disdainful, a ruler descending upon the world. When did such a man appear in the Yenwu continent? Why has he never seen him before? You, who are you? Why, want to kill me? Do you know who I am? If you kill me, my master won't let you off. Swish. A cold light flashed, and Protector Lee felt a sharp pain in his mouth and tongue. Then, he could no longer make a sound. Then, he saw the man lift his eyes and look at him. His only glance was extremely cold, as if he was looking at a disgusting ant. For hurting her, you don't even deserve to die. Taking advantage of the night, Mu Yang quickly arrives at Enforcer Lee's residence. But as soon as she entered the door, she felt that something was wrong. A pungent stench assaulted his nostrils. It was accompanied by the man's low, broken moans. His moans were filled with pain and despair, but he just couldn't break free. He pushed open Protector Lee's door. Even with Mu Yang's calmness, she was still somewhat unable to recover from the scene in front of her. What the hell was that meatball nailed to the wall? Judging from his aura, it seemed to be Protector Lee. But how did Guardian Lee turn into such a ghostly state? Chapter 290. This is simply more painful than death, isn't it? Her own enmity was inexplicably avenged. Although she also very much hopes that this henchman of Qian Qing's will die without a burial site. But, in the end, who was it that made the first move? Mu Yan slightly knits her brows, and slowly walks 2 steps inside the room. Suddenly, a strange breath rushes into the tip of her nose, making her breath slightly sluggish. However, she quickly returns to normal, and leaves with a puzzled look on her face. After Mu Yan has left, 2 figures appear. Han Yi couldn't help but ask softly, Jun Shong, are you not going to meet with Miss Mu Yan? Humph. The man at his side turns his head, his expression as cold and unapproachable as ever. But within those blue eyes, there's a hint of gnashing teeth resentment. Not meeting. Han Yi can't help but secretly roll his eyes. Say you won't meet, but don't be so worried, unable to sit or stand still. You even do this kind of thing like peeping. Say you won't meet, but don't go crazy with jealousy when you see Miss Mu Yan being intimate with a man. Say you won't meet, but don't run over to avenge Miss Mu Yan when you see her injured. Kai Yang Imperial Palace. Cough, cough, cough. Violent coughing sounds, and it's accompanied by a pungent smell of medicine, filling the room. As soon as Liu Beiyu hears the coughing, he immediately drops his paintbrush and rushes over. He helps the person on the bed up, his face full of concern. Big brother, how are you? Are you all right? The youth on the bed shakes his head, revealing a weak smile as he looks up at Liu Beiyu. He sees that the youth has a handsome face, but it's extremely pale. His pair of beautiful eyes seem to be covered with a layer of white nebula, making him look like a blind person who can't focus. Especially when he coughs, This white nebula becomes even heavier. Liu Beiyu looks at the youth's deathly pale face, the sweat on his forehead, and the increasingly deep white nebula in his eyes. His eyes are full of worry. Big brother, isn't your illness getting worse? Listen to me, come with me to see my master, okay? Maybe my master can cure you. Cough, cough. The youth coughs twice, then he shakes his head with a wry smile. You said it yourself, your master is an apothecary, not a doctor. My illness can't be cured by medicine. Even the divine Dr. Chen Qing had no way to cure it, so how could anyone else be able to cure it? Why go through the trouble of making this trip? Liu Beiyu wants to refute that his master is omnipotent. But when he thought about it, he realized that he had never seen his master's medical skills other than sewing chicken legs. Pui, sewing his legs, it seemed like he had never seen any other medical skills. If Big Brother painstakingly went there but couldn't cure it in the end, Big Brother would definitely be very sad. Moreover, the problem was that he didn't know where his master was. Let's not talk about this. Big Brother, look at the painting I just drew. What do you think? You've made great progress, haven't you? Since there's no solution, Liu Beiyu simply changes the subject. You see, this is Imperial Father's Imperial bodyguard. His body is the most satisfactory of all my works. Only to see Liu Beiyu spread out the drawing paper, impressively drawing a man who is almost completely naked from head to toe, only using vine leaves to cover his important parts. The man was tall and sturdy, with muscles all over his body. But Liu Beiyu posed it in a gentle and beautiful posture. That appearance is really unspeakably strange. Chapter 291. Liu Beiyu is extremely satisfied with his masterpiece. He thought to himself, Master is so smart, telling me to draw a tall and sturdy man, not a beautiful woman. Sure enough, his painting skills had improved by leaps and bounds. When he saw his master, he would definitely let his master take a good look at him and praise him. When the young man on the bed saw the painting, he could not help but twitch the corner of his mouth. He wanted to say something but stopped himself. At this moment, a young eunuch hurriedly ran in. When he saw the two of them, he kowtowed and said, Your First Highness, Your Third Highness, I have something to report. What is it? It's news from Chenyuan City. The little eunuch raised his head, his face full of excitement and agitation. It's said that a famous doctor has appeared over there. He can cure the terminal stage of intestinal ulcer, and can even bring the dead back to life. Some even said that her medical skills were better than Miracle Dr. Qian's. What doctor? How could he be more powerful than Dr. Qian? Liu Beiyu's eyes also brighten. What's his name? What's his background? Since it's in the territory of my Kaiyang country, just invite someone to the Imperial Palace to diagnose Big Brother's illness. The young eunuch showed a hint of hesitation. I heard that the miracle doctor has a very strange temper. He only sees a few patients a day and doesn't pay anyone's bills. I'm afraid it won't be easy to invite him. Liu Beiyu's brows wrinkled all of a sudden. What the hell? How dare you ignore the summons of our Imperial Palace? Tell me, where did he come from? Could it be someone from Xian Medical Pavilion? Does it have anything to do with Chen Qing? The little eunuch shook his head. This doctor, the people of Chenyuan City gave her a nickname, Enchantress of Medicine, meaning, charming ghosts and gods, doctor in charge of heaven's will. This was not only because of the doctor's miraculous medical skills, but also because she was an extremely beautiful young lady. Girl! Liu Beiyu's eyes suddenly widen. As if he had thought of something seemed to be burning in his eyes. What's her name? The Enchantress is called Jun Muyan. Bang! Liu Beiyu stumbles and awkwardly falls to the ground. Third brother. The young man on the bed screamed and wanted to reach out to support him. He sees Liu Beiyu quickly climb up, his face still a little red from the fall, blooming with an excited smile. Big brother, it's Master. The Enchantress Muyan is the master that I told you about. I told you that Master would definitely be able to cure you. Just you wait, I'll go to Chenyuan City now and invite Master over to treat you. Believe me, Master is omnipotent. She will definitely be able to cure your illness. Chenyuan City, Junji Medical Center. Get out of the way. Don't block the way. Let my family's palace. Let my family's young master pass. The crowd outside the clinic was suddenly pushed aside by a few muscular men who were dressed similarly. Each of these brawny men was at least at the mystic stage. Their eyes were sharp and their auras were threatening. One look and you could tell that they were not to be trifled with. The crowd retreated to the sides, but there was worry on their faces. Why did someone come to cause trouble again? Could it be that the people of Xian Medical Pavilion want to lay their hands on the Enchantress of Medicine? This is going too far. The Junji Medical Center clearly didn't do anything wrong, but they keep coming over to make trouble again and again. The commotion here also alarmed the Ink camp guards inside the medical center. They've already been informed that they might be facing the counterattack of Xian Medical Pavilion. Chapter 292. Immediately, their eyes lit up with excitement. Damn, this group of grandsons from Xian Medical Pavilion finally have the guts to come and cause trouble. I've been waiting for them for so long that I'm going to rot. That's right. If we don't fight, we have to be drilled every day. It's a living hell. Brothers, the fat sheep has delivered themselves to us. Beat them to death. However, don't beat him to death, lest you get bored later on. Liu Beiyu has just pushed aside his bodyguards, opening his mouth to say, "Who are you people, daring to block my way? Quickly get out of the way, I want to find my master." Before he could finish saying master, a huge fist was already flying towards his face. A scream. Then came the sounds of fighting. In just a short span of a few dozen breaths, Liu Beiyu and the guards he brought are already lying on the ground. All of them had bruised noses and swollen faces. They exhaled more than they inhaled, and they couldn't even get up. Guan, who directly sits on Liu Beiyu's body and sneers, "Speak, who sent you? What do you want to do running to our Junji Medical Center?" Liu Beiyu ruthlessly glares at Guan who, gnashing his teeth, You bunch of bastard. How dare you treat me like this? My master and senior brother won't let you off. Ayo, I'm so scared. Guan, who picked his ear, why don't you tell me, what are the names of your master and senior brother? Let's see if I'm scared or not. Ha ha ha. The surrounding people of the Ink camp burst into laughter. Just as he was laughing, he heard a commotion in the crowd. Someone shouted, "It's the Enchantress of Medicine. The Enchantress and young master are back." Then, a girl in green with a face as white as snow slowly walked over, holding the hand of a cute child. The moment he saw the two, Liu Beiyu's eyes redden all of a sudden, and he yells at the top of his lungs, "Master, little brother, help our..." Whoosh. Everyone seemed to hear the sound of leaves blowing past their ears. Guan, who stiffens. He turns his head and woodenly looks at Liu Beiyu. Who are you calling master?" Right at this moment, Xiao Bao had already struggled free of Mu Yang's hand and slowly walked over to him. His gaze slowly moves up from Liu Beiyu's tearful face, falling on Guan, whose body that is already so stiff that he can't move. Young master, you." Xiao Bao slightly narrowed his eyes and said in his unique childish voice, "What do you want to do to my stupid junior brother?" Hearing his words, the tears in Liu Beiyu's eyes suddenly gushes out. "Little senior brother, you must uphold justice for me." Xiao Bao turned his head away with a look of disgust on his face and spat out the word stupid. However, her small hand still stretched out, grabbed Guan Hu's collar, and directly threw him out. Throughout the whole process, Mu Yang stood on the side with a smile on her face, a peculiar light circulating in her eyes. Xiao Bao looked cold. But once he treated them as one of his own, he would protect them. For example, this stupid prince who had only been her disciple for 3 days and hadn't even learned half a move from her. Just because Liu Beiyu calls him little senior brother and trusts him wholeheartedly. Young miss. The people of the Ink camp tremble with fear and trepidation as they line up in front of Mu Yang. Shrinking their heads, they have a pitiful appearance. "We really didn't know that this was your disciple. The main thing is, the miss and the little master are clearly so valiant. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.